Winds up to 75 miles per hour or greater, large hail, and maybe even more flash flooding again. Good morning, I'm meteorologist Pew. Today is July 29, 2025. Today we have a slight risk, or a 2 out of 5, stretching from the northern Rockies to the high plains to the central plains. And what this entails is that we're going to see a 50% chance to see high winds, but especially in the central plains, these areas in the hatch risk may see winds up to 75 miles per hour or even greater. And then we have a 50% chance to see large hail, but especially in the Eastern Rockies and a little bit in the high plains. In terms of flash flooding, the Weather Prediction Center has issued a slight risk, or a 2 out of 4, in the central plains, a little bit in the high plains, and also New Mexico. For the plains, we can see a long range of rainfall from 1 to 2 inches, and maybe in isolated places even 3 inches or more. And then for New Mexico, there are isolated places that may see 1 to 2 inches of rain. In terms of the time frame, the storms are going to start initiating along the Rockies in New Mexico around 19C, or that's 12 p.m. Mountain Time. And these storms along the Rockies are going to travel eastward, and once it hits the central plains, they're going to start intensifying around 23Z, or that's 5 p.m. Mountain Time, 6 p.m. Central Time. And these storms may organize into an MCS, or one big blob, and travel through Nebraska, Iowa, and maybe even northern Illinois by early morning. Looking at the surface, we still have a high pressure that's just sitting in the Gulf that's pulling in warm, moist air into the central plains. And with that, with a similar situation to what happened yesterday, we have a low pressure that's sitting in the Eastern Rockies, and that's counterclockwise flow, and it's bringing in that warm, moist air and wrapping around it and going towards the Rockies, bringing easterly flow. And this is going to be significant because geographically, the terrain gets way higher in these areas. So because we're going to have easterly winds, it's going to cause orographic lift. Basically means that the surface winds are literally going to follow the terrain upward, which is going to promote more upward motion. And once these storms in Eastern Rockies develop and travel eastward to the central plains, it's actually going to follow adjacent to the cold front, which is going to provide more surface lift. If we take a look at satellite imagery, we can see that we have clear skies in the southern plains and central plains. And this is going to bring in more diurnal heating, more surface heating, which is more instability. And because we know the surface winds are coming from the south to the central plains and then into the Eastern Rockies, with this additional instability, it's going to help with the storm development. Also want to point out, in New Mexico, we do have an MCV, or mesoscale convective vortex, which is essentially a localized circulation. And this is going to help with the convection in this area. Looking at 500 millibars or midway through the troposphere, this is where things get a little bit more interesting. Starting with the northern Rockies, we do have a shortwave trough, and we have these pockets of wind speed, which is going to bring in decent wind shear, which is going to tilt those updrafts, prolong those storms. But also due to the curvature and these winds going parallel to these isobars, we do have a little bit of vorticity or spin, and that's going to help with the upward motion. But if we look at the Eastern Rockies and New Mexico, there's almost no wind speed, which means no shear. But the one thing that these areas have going for them is there's going to be mid-level moisture that's coming from New Mexico into the Eastern Rockies. And this is important because these areas are in much higher elevation. Any moisture in the mid-level is going to help with the thunderstorm development. And this is where things get really interesting. So in combination with all the surface lift, orographic lifts, and this mid-level moisture, these storms that do develop in the Eastern Rockies are going to promote a lot of upward motion to the point where it kind of creates its own shortwave trough, and then brings itself a little bit of good shear of its own, which is going to help prolong the storms that go through the central plains into the Midwest. And that's why we have